Plus lots more. Their music still lives on in our heart. An unforgettable night as we celebrate their legacy in Gone But Not Forgotten. Wednesday, February 4th at Napa and Thursday, February 5th at Sapa. Showtime both nights, 6:30 p.m. Your master of ceremonies, Sonny Bling.
Tickets $300 and $250.
Early bird tickets bought by Monday, January 26th. Cost $50 less.
Available at Crosby's, Jumbo Foods Barataria, Mart's Liquor Palace, Diego Martin Main Road, all Kenny Sports, Western Union, Tuna Puna, all Extra Foods, Athletes by the Park, and IslandEtickets.com. An extra $10 off for online purchases. For more info, call 732-3402. Gone, but not forgotten.
Hey, you come in. Long time I see you, Jill. This station complete. Ready for children party. Mommy! Jay, you can't go nowhere with these children. And you know you can't depend on Kevin neither Steven to see about them. Yeah, total waste. So I supposed to stay home whole time? Jada is 12. She could see about that. You just leave Jada to see about Kira and Kayla? I thought it was your mother or your sister. Who? Them always busy. Jada could handle that. She cooking and cleaning a long time. And the next two, better know what time it is. It's only me, you know. I will talk to my mother. She just home these days. She will make sure the children okay. Alright. Let me see the moves for later.
Before you ramage, make sure the children okay. Call 996 to report all child abuse now. A message from the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
Don't stop.
Previously on Cover Star.
Just keeping on with my flow.
We met the voices and we met our first two panels of judges. Episode 1, Vonette Bickford and myself, Hannah Abdul. Episode 2, Candice Alcantara and the piano girl Johanna. And shout out to our judges for tonight's episode. Jarrell Forbes, Luke Samerson, and Vonette is back. Over the last two episodes, we got into the covers and the judges looked, listened, and scored. Two contestants were unable to perform due to illness. They did not score and they were out of the running. This is Cover Star, where music history meets its next voice.
On WESN, the content capital.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say, we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Fan Zone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
WESN.
So, beautiful weather we're having this morning. Wouldn't you agree? This is weather to sleep into. This was the first time in a long time where it wasn't just the usual struggle to get up, get to work, you know. Maybe you didn't get enough sleep the night before. Maybe you're more responsible than me and you did get enough sleep the night before. But usually, there isn't such an incentive, you know, that makes you look outside the house, see the weather, and just have that feeling of, why can I not just stay home today? Stay in my bed. Stay asleep. Perfect weather to stay asleep. Which is ironic because we had a whole situation with the schools that I haven't spoken about yet, where it seems as though there's an issue with the teachers' union and, well, money. Now, the actual issue, I believe, is to deal with getting back pay. The teachers, reportedly, they said this, you know, early December, late November, they were hoping to get something like the PSA. And it seems as though, and I could be wrong, but it seems as though they looked at the PSA and there was an agreed salary increase by the government, but they're also looking at not just getting the increase, but the timing, the implementation, and the fact that the PSA seemingly was given so much. And it's not, I don't think it's about getting the same amount as the PSA, but at least getting what they think was agreed to and not having it stalled out, not having to wait. The PSA didn't want to wait. The PSA didn't want to wait, and the government seemingly wanted the PSA to wait, but couldn't figure out a way to politically get that through. Because the PSA was going to the president saying, why is the CPO avoiding me? So then the government tried to say, well, CPO is going rogue. Don't mind that by law, he is not that independent. He still has to, yes, maybe if you read only part of the legislation that governs it, you will see where he takes advice from the minister. And usually that means you have leeway to do what you want at the end of the day. But then there's another part that doesn't say advice. It says basically, follow the minister. This is a situation where I want to relish in it a little bit. Not necessarily to have something to point my fingers at the government and laugh, but rather I want to relish it on the fact that there were individuals who believed, oh no, the government and the unions are fine and everything is going to be hunky-dory, kumbaya, no issues here. When I said that the interests of the unions and the interests of government and states are never going to be permanently the same or parallel, they will diverge at some point. That is who you are negotiating against in a situation where the government legitimately does not have the money to meet the demands of every union, of every public sector worker. Whether it's teachers, police, fire, ministry, PSA for public utilities, etc. So, and it's not necessarily like a direct I told you so moment, but more importantly, while I do not like the fact that the government seemingly did not think this through, because if you give one union something, yes, I know, the common defense now is, and I've heard people reiterate the government's position, well, why did you accept what the PNM had to offer? Again, similar to the property tax, the current government called out the PNM for being wicked for offering 4%, 5%. So it's wicked when the PNM does it, but when you are now in a position to change the situation, now, hey, it's not our fault, it's your fault. You got to take what you get. We could change the wickedness, but we're going to hold you to it because somehow, ethically speaking, morally speaking, that's the superior position. That's like saying, look, the PNM put these people in jail. These innocent people in jail. We could take them out of jail, but why did you accept the plea deal? Why did you accept the plea deal to go into jail? Nah, you have to stay in jail. You have to stay in purgatory. You have to stay in financial jail, financial purgatory. That's kind of how it comes across. Why did you pay the property tax? Why did you listen to the government of the day, the wicked government on the wicked property tax? Now we can't refund it. The unethical, immoral property tax, we can't refund it. We need that unethical money. We need that unethical money. Because we don't know where else to find the money. So, right now, that is separate. That is separate to what does the government do now. That is a separate issue to what does the government do now. And we should think about it, practically speaking, separately to what do we want the government to do now in order to assess the decision making. Because we got here, and I don't like how we got here. And I felt it would have been a situation where government should have said, if we give one union X, the other unions might get upset. And I know that some of them ain't supposed to protest, and tutors saying, we didn't organize nothing. So now, you gotta prove it if you wanna go down that road. But as somebody told me last night, they should not pay all of them or let go all of them. I'm like, this is the thing about unions, right? And the PSA is included. It's one thing if you want to punish some of the workers, but you can't punish all of the public sector teachers at the same time because you can't replace all of them at the same time. So at some point, if the government goes too far, tutor will call their bluff and say, really? Here's the road you want to go down? Because if we're going to be mistreated to an extent where it's going to piss all of the tutor members off, and they're going to decide we need to take our labor elsewhere, then what is the government going to do? So what do you do now? Apparently, the absenteeism, the random chance of mutual absenteeism is over. Fine. But I think they made a point. Now the government is in a liquidity situation. So I understand, and I'm not demanding that the government just give in to tutor whatever it is they want, but they found themselves here. So while I would put this whole situation at the foot of the current administration, the solution is still not that easy. And we need to keep that in mind when we want to assess the situation with regards to how it's being handled. And this is why communication matters, because more often than not, effective communication, relatively speaking to the situation, will not cost you extra, but will provide you additional benefits on managing a situation. But it seems as though politicians across the board, you know, they spend too much time getting law degrees. Some of them don't even practice law, and not enough time getting practical skills with regards to once we finish the internal jockeying for position in our party and the internal backstabbing in order to get where we want to get, and now we are the leaders of a political party, we get elected. Now that we're elected, we get into high office, and too many of them do not know what they're doing. We saw this with the PNM, we see this with the UNC. And there are going to be a subset of people that's going to dislike me for saying that, thinking, well, what you want? How you could bad talk my side so? Hey, there's nothing in the universe that says when you have two competing entities, one of them must be right and the other must be wrong. They could both be right, and conversely, they could both be wrong. They could both be deficient. They could both have similar faults. Just because we voted one in over the other doesn't mean they can't share faults. They can't make similar mistakes. Communication issues could be fixed. Communication issues caused extra unnecessary drama with the PSA. And that set you up for tutor. I don't know who the next union is going to be, but dare I say, given what's going on with North Central Regional Health Authority, workers want Tim Gopi Singh to go due to several issues, including severe shortage of consumables. This is something that I could respect to some extent, because it's not just about what about our money. It's about, hey, we have a job, and apparently we don't have enough supplies to do our job. And the thing is, that might not be Mr. Gopi Singh's fault. And this is where communication comes in order to manage the expectations of the workers of the country. If you have a reasonable explanation as to why this is the way it is, you need to be able to effectively communicate it. Unlike certain situations with regards to a shooting that we will get into later, where, in my opinion, the pitiful attempts to try to defend the situation is just further damning evidence of people who are unworthy of the position and office that they hold. Whether or not they could be fired varies. A couple of other things I want to get to very quickly. One, there's a situation where 8 cops, they're going to be standing trial over arrest due to irregularities in the firearms unit, right? Charged in 2023. This is the illusion of the previous administration as to why they had an issue with Guy Griffith. To some extent, this is indirectly or directly tied to the Brent Thomas matter. I'm not necessarily satisfied with just this case alone, because there are too many questions with regards to not just what was going on with the firearms unit, but also the political response that led to excessive situations that are yet to be explained. Also, there's a lawsuit in the United States, I haven't spoken about it yet, with regards to the killing of 2 TNT nationals with the missile strikes. It's a wrongful death lawsuit in the federal court in Massachusetts. Here's the thing. My only hope is that this thing does not get decided on a technicality, where it leaves the situation uncertain, right? Particularly if the plaintiffs lose, the people who are suing the government, the families, and they lose on a technicality, because then We don't actually get a resolution, right? I, however, suspect on some level we're not going to get a resolution because national security, classified information, what's intelligence, blah, 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 blah. Not too dissimilar to what's going on down here. Doesn't make it any more palpable, to be honest. And just something to point out, apparently a doubles vendor was robbed at gunpoint. A gold bearer valued at $25,000, a gold Spanish link chain worth $10,000, and a cell phone, $2,500. I just want to know, if you're selling doubles, why are you wearing $35,000 in jewelry? Now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying that there's anything suspicious there. I'm saying, folks, maybe if you're going about your everyday life, don't wear a set of expensive jewelry. Just saying. You might get robbed. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into some of the more meatier topics of the week, because certain things, I know that you might be bored of hearing about it, but hey, it just keeps going and going and going, and it's getting more and more serious depending on how you look at it. So we're going to talk about it. Sure, Michael Small, this is Talking About on WESN. We'll be right back after this.
Last year, you had the time of your life.
Amplia!
This year will be even more fantastic. Get your tickets now for Gone But Not Forgotten 2.
I feel like home. They gave us the memory.
Woman, you could run away too.
They gave us the rhythms of life. Now let's give them their flowers.
Trinidad and Tobago, join us for a special tribute to our legendary musical icons who have passed on in Gone But Not Forgotten.
Including Bunny, Swallow, Singing Francine, Shadow, Arrow, Maestro, Rootsman, Lax, Sandoli, Ras Shorty Eye, plus lots more. Their music still lives on in our heart. An unforgettable night as we celebrate their legacy in Gone But Not Forgotten. Wednesday, February 4th at Napa and Thursday, February 5th at Sapa. Showtime both nights, 6:30 p.m. Your master of ceremonies, Sonny Blink.
Tickets $300 and $250.
Early bird tickets bought by Monday, January 26th. Cost $50 less.
Available at Crosby's, Jumbo Foods Barataria, Mart's Liquor Palace, Digo Martin Main Road, all Kenny Sports, Western Union, Tuna Puna, all Extra Foods, Athletes by the Park, and IslandEatTickets.com. An extra $10 off for online purchases. For more info, call 732-3402. Gone, but not forgotten.
As you come in. Long time I see you. This station complete. Ready for children party. Mommy! Jay, you can't go nowhere with these children. And you know you can't depend on Kevin neither Steven to see about them. Yeah, total waste. So I supposed to stay home whole time? Jada is 12. She could see about that. You just leave Jada to see about Kia and Kayla. I thought it was your mother or your sister. Who? Them always busy. Jada could handle that. She cooking and cleaning a long time. And the next two, better know what time it is. It's only me, you know. I will talk to my mother. She just home these days. She will make sure the children okay. Alright. Let me see the moves for later.
Before you ramage, make sure the children okay. Call 996 to report all child abuse now. A message from the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
Don't stop.
Previously on Cover Star.
Just keeping on with my flow.
We met the voices, and we met our first two panels of judges. Episode 1, Vonette Bigford and myself, Hannah Abdul. Episode 2, Candice Alcantara and the piano girl Johanna. And shout out to our judges for tonight's episode, Jarrell Forbes, Luke Samerson, and Vonette is back. Over the last 2 episodes, we got into the covers and the judges looked, listened, and scored. 2 contestants were unable to perform due to illness. They did not score and they were out of the running. This is Cover Star, where music history meets its next voice.
On WESN, the content capital.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
I'm back here talking about the WESN content capital and continuing with, I guess you could say, the streak continues. When Ashraf started off, we spoke about the fact that, hey, he could speak more than just national security. It's just that somehow, in a year when the murder rate was down, we have yet to have a chance to breathe and maybe give a serious attention to non-national security topics, with the exception maybe of the election, right? But even then, there was so much national security issues to bite, to chew on. And now, I guess you could say, things have reached a new zenith. I wouldn't say that we've peaked now. We've been peaking over multiple different issues, some outside of our control, but these issues very much within our realm of control. So to continue the big stories of the week, I apologize for those that might want to hear more about something else, but it is what it is. This is what is potentially shaping our future. We can't be ignorant to what's going on. Former police officer, inspector, retired inspector. I guess now, hey, aren't you happy that you're not out there dealing with what's going on now? Ashraf Ali, folks.
Sean, good morning to the viewers. Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago, and all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It's a sad reality that we are facing right now in terms of how we view security, national security and crime in Trinidad and Tobago. It might be nice, it's nice to say that I am no longer within the organization, but my heart is within the organization, and I have been there for a number of years, so I just can't shrug it off and say, well, it is not in part of me. But when you see what is happening within the organization and some of the things and some of the comments, both against the organization and within the organization, you're wondering what could we get any more worse than where we are going.
All right, let's not, I mean, there's something that we need to talk about first, but I'll just say this. It's not as though the defense on the situation is any more constructive than the criticisms and the verbal attacks against the situation.
And that is the reality of many of these situations that we face.
Now, I guess, in a sense, when you kind of take a big picture view, the Zoso legislation is probably the more, when it comes to long-term issues, more critical. It's tied to the shooting in a way, right? And I guess you could say now it will forever be linked because of the timing, but also because of, to some extent, the shooting is an example of a worst-case scenario people fear for when you see legislation like this. But it's not to say that this legislation was conceptually bad, because Guardian Media spoke to member of Jamaica's Minister of Foreign Affairs, who had a lot to say about their version of the bill, which, according to one of our callers, seems to be like we copied and pasted Jamaica's legislation, potentially to our detriment, because we're not exactly the same country. You can't just replace names. But I just want to say, the way how she described it, right? There's been no silver bullet, but the ZOSO has been a critical part of the toolbox. ZOSO's combined, I know, I guess now it's a word, right? ZOSO's combined intensified policing with social intervention. It combines social action with hard policing. You're bringing in your agencies of social change. You're ensuring that disenfranchised youth have opportunities and training, right? And here's the thing. Coming from the government, it seems as though the social part was just kind of tacked on because Jamaica did it. Because Minister Sturge said, well, we're going to use this to lock up the gang leaders, and it'll be over in 2 to 3 years, 5 for the most, right? And the AG, as much as he said it's long term, so he's contradicting the Minister of Defense, by the way. The AG said, no, well, we need this as soon as possible. So all these valid amendments that you're proposing and all these valid concerns that you're proposing, we don't have time for that. We need to put this incomplete, potentially flawed legislation out there and ignore your concerns, independent bench. And then, of course, that led into something else, but we get into that a little bit, right? They seem to be rushing it to try to cover in time for when the SOE ends. And it implies to me that the social part of it is lost on the implementation. And they basically are just trying to continue the SOE, but they don't want to have to vote to try to continue an SOE.
Well, I heard the interview by Guardian Media. Right? It was very interesting to hear how the Jamaican perspective operates. Mm-hmm. One of the key areas is that they indicated that in order to sell or bring that legislation forward, there was a lot of consultation. Mm-hmm. And it would have had some stumbling blocks, and they had to had consultation both internally as well as with the opposition to say exactly what it's going to take and how it is going to roll out. One of the difference I am saying is that with respect to the Jamaican model is that as opposed to using taking the Jamaican model and bringing it to wholesome in Trinidad and Tobago, is that we could have brought the entire thing, because it's really more or less the whole model is going to use. Mm-hmm. We have, and people need to acknowledge this, is that we have a challenge in our political system because we view one party as being of a particular ethnicity and one party being of a particular ethnicity.
Yes.
We have the statistical data that suggests that certain communities that have the vast majority of the community is of a particular ethnicity is involved in crime. We have the data to indicate. When you look at what is taking place in the prisons, the vast majority of a particular ethnicity in prison, not the fact that they have been convicted. I'm not dealing with that aspect of.
This is just remand.
Just remand.
Right.
We have the data to suggest that the type of individuals who are committing crime, the vast majority of our particular age range, and of a particular ethnicity. And furthermore, all of this data that we have becomes null and void because we have a problem with how we view this Zozos coming out of a state of emergency. We had 3 state of emergencies. Are we better off from the 3 state of emergencies in terms of crime per se? Yes, number of homicides has dropped. what is expected in a state of emergency? Have we saw the criminal elements being arrested and charged, the vast majority of them, to say that the state of emergency did its job because of what was intended to, because of the type of crime, the intelligence that suggests? We are still seeing murders taking place. We're still seeing robberies taking place. We saw kidnappings taking place. We saw home invasions taking place. To the extent that people are still starting, were we ever in a state of emergency, or is just a term that was used because persons never felt a state of emergency?
I think, to just emphasize that point, we were in a state of emergency. Yes, murders are down. But when was 200 to 300 murders acceptable?
And
because I would argue it shouldn't be acceptable in normal times. So when you think about it, during a state of emergency, we appreciate the fact you can't build Rome in a day.
Yes.
But to say that the job is done and we've won, I think would be very premature and immature, because it's a state of emergency. And I guess it goes back to one of the conversation points we've had over the last 6 months or so, or even from the very beginning of last year. Anyone feels like we're in a state of emergency? Anybody?
I saw the value in these ZOZOs and how it can change, not reduce crime, but it can give some value to changing how the people view communities and even within communities, the upliftment of their communities. That's long term. That's where all the social programs and the other programs have to be put into place, which is going to be from a long term perspective. You can't change people's minds overnight. It's going to take some time. The challenge we continue to face is that we don't want to acknowledge it. We do not want to acknowledge that some of the areas that are where the criminal elements reside are of a particular
well, the thing is,
in a particular location where one or other party
one party dominates. Right. I think part of the issue is, and this is where, and this will tie us into the next topic. When it doesn't look as though you could trust the system, it's hard not to listen to arguments where, look, there's bad stuff happening, so it has to be persecution. So what's the motivation? And some will argue politics, and some will argue race. And when the authorities, whether it's the government of the day, right? Because on some level, you could argue, we had similar issues with regards to police shootings and public trust and confidence under the PNM.
Yes.
Right? But the issue is, because the police, because the ministries of national security, because the cabinet, because the National Security Council, because the head of state, we have an issue of trusting them, particularly with regards to national security issues. Right?
I want to bring this.
It's very easy now for someone to say, well, it's a racial thing, and because there's no transparency, you have no practical evidence to say, no, it's not about race.
Exactly. Everybody beat the former commissioner of police.
Which one?
Miss Ulla Christopher.
Right.
She a little too soft. She's this, she's that, she doesn't know this. Fair enough. We can use all those arguments. But she didn't make a very decisive decision at a particular point in time. When we saw an incident with a traffic warden in Port of Spain, where it was a police officer who assaulted a traffic warden.
Yeah. Off-duty police officer, I believe it was?
In very short order.
Yes.
By the next 2 or 3 days, that officer was arrested, charged, and suspended. He has his day in court. Fair enough. I'm not saying the same should be said about in this particular incident where the police involved shooting, but there's so much police involved shootings that we had over the years. That transparency with respect to it when it comes to body cameras, proper footage, and public communication with the public was lacking. There's always mistrust in it. There will always be mistrust in it.
I think also I understand why people want to come up with these arguments, and now the Prime Minister, because it seems as though she's trying to do everything to deflect on how the debates on the social legislation went. So now she's looking to say that, well, this is how it's reported. Attempting to link violent crime trends in Trinidad and Tobago to race and accuse the opposition of shielding drug mafia finances, right? Communities oppressed by violent gangs are Afro-dominated communities within PNM strongholds. Yet the PNM continues to block action by the security services to help these communities. The PNM's hierarchy's real concern appears to be protecting local drug mafia finances. Now, I could understand some of the practical logic behind it, but the problem is it's a politically charged situation where we don't have transparency, right? And it's not as though we could look to the Prime Minister and say, you are definitely an objective viewpoint when it comes to politics. When it comes to other things, you could maybe claim objectivity. But as the political leader of the UNC, I can't look to you to be an objective critic 100% of the time to your political opponents, right? And I think also, ironically, one of the things that kind of sinks this argument is when the PNM were looking to, I believe it was the anti-gang legislation, which had a sunset clause. The opposition UNC voted against them. I can't remember how that resolved or if the PNM had to bring in something more watered down, right? But it wasn't as though, and that's the other thing, people were saying, well, why not have a sunset clause? Now, I understand the AG's position. Well, there are social programs tied to this legislation. Why is it in the same legislation? Number one. But number two, half of your government is telling us that this is a short-term solution, not a long-term solution. So it's not that the government's messaging is inconsistent, but it's not as though there isn't anybody in the government looking at the bigger picture here. But you made a legislation with a sunset clause, right? Back when the anti-gang legislation was put into place. You did it once. And then I believe you used that as a way to engage with the government and to deny the continuation of whatever was there. So it seems somewhat hypocritical now or inconsistent where you're saying these things now. And now it takes what might be factual information and it turns it into a very sensitive...
It is a sensitive...
Sorry, it makes it more sensitive. No, but I think politicians need to understand, when they say certain things, it's different for if some professor from some academic institution says certain things.
But it is a sensitive topic because of the fact that you are going to hamper persons' constitutional rights to freedom.
Right.
To movement. Right? We already have the fear of abuse by the law enforcement authorities. We already have the fear, and we already have documented facts.
You made a good point, because recently you could say people were looking at the police funny because of before the shooting.
It was already in a poor state. Right?
No, but what happened recently? I want you to say it. I don't want to say it because you brought this to my attention.
So in the beginning of the year, there was a hike in the traffic offenses, which was a good opportunity, a good opportunity to change certain driving cultures on the road. The way that it was rolled out and the manner in which law enforcement went after it, it gave a very bitter taste in the public's perception of abuse of authority, given that additional powers. Yes, the offenses were already there. It's just that the fines were increased. So why are we going around now trying to fine all the offenses where the fines were increased? The offenses was there. It's to inform the persons that, listen, you are now going to be penalized double. But the way it came across, the public was already having a negative, adding to the negativities of public confidence in the law enforcement. And honestly, law enforcement, with all the bodies who were doing enforcement, not police alone.
I mean, do you think that people just believe, or they're definitely quotas now? Because I think a significant fraction of the population, if not the majority, are like, no, they're definitely quotas now.
And they already have some quotas, but there are certain things that we'll have, but that didn't leave a nice taste. Now we are coming out of a state of emergency. State of emergency is going to be finishing on the expiring on the 31st or the 1st of February, right? Where is the data to suggest, where is the information that because of the last 2 state of emergencies, we can get information that the persons that were arrested that they had detention orders, that these persons have been arrested and charged because the state of emergency gave us the additional powers to do certain acts, to do things. Where is that information that could bring that trust back into the to law enforcement to do what they ask for?
Because it's maybe, I don't know if you could explain it to the public. You have people on detention orders, but detention orders in the long run is almost meaningless, except when it comes to suing the state.
Yes. So
because when the state of emergency ends, that goes out the window. You have to release them. Yes.
You will have to, but my thing about it is, you ask for a state of emergency, and for particular reasons. And those reasons, the public is still asking, well, let us hear who are the persons that was arrested and charged based on the intelligence that we would have put forward. So the public will have confidence, a little more confidence, or I should say the confidence can increase, right?
Yeah.
Even a 1% confidence is enough. It's in a positive direction that the state of emergency and the intended purpose of the state of emergency was effective. Not to say that the murder rate was down, because we always want the murder rate to go down. But we want to know that the criminal elements where it was intended to suppress and put before the courts are before the courts.
The thing is, in Jamaica, there's a 20 to 30% trust and confidence in the police. But even people who did not necessarily have trust and confidence in the police were willing to cooperate with the police for their social and social initiatives. We don't have that.
Outside of state of emergency, outside of the, well, no more Zoso for now, I am saying that the public did not have trust and confidence in law enforcement to be fair and not abuse the authorities before. This is going to be a very hard sell.
Well, it's such a hard sell, and one of the things that undermines the Prime Minister's, some of her defenses is one particular line of accusations that she took. We'll get into that in a bit, but we do have to take a break. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this is Talking Point. Stay tuned.
Last year, you had the time of your life.
Amplia!
This year will be even more fantastic. Get your tickets now for Gone But Not Forgotten 2.
I feel like home. They gave us the memory.
Woman, you could run away too.
They gave us the rhythms of life. Now let's give them their flowers.
Trinidad and Tobago, join us for a special tribute to our legendary musical icons who have passed on in Gone But Not Forgotten.
Including Bunny, Swallow, Singing Francine, Shadow, Arrow, Maestro, Rootsman, Lax, Sandoli, Ras Shorty Eye, plus lots more. Their music still lives on in our heart. An unforgettable night as we celebrate their legacy in Gone But Not Forgotten. Wednesday, February 4th at Napa and Thursday, February 5th at Sapa. Showtime both nights, 6:30 p.m. Your master of ceremonies, Sonny Bling.
Tickets $300 and $250.
Early bird tickets bought by Monday, January 26th. Cost $50 less.
Available at Crosby's, Jumbo Foods Barataria, Mart's Liquor Palace, Digo Martin Main Road, all Kenny Sports, Western Union, Tunapuna, all Extra Foods, Athletes by the Park, and IslandEatTickets.com. An extra $10 off for online purchases. For more info, call 732-3402. Gone, but not forgotten.
come in. Long time I see a girl. This station complete. Ready for children party. Tommy! Jay, you can't go nowhere with these children. And you know you can't depend on Kevin neither Steven to see about them. They're total waste. So I supposed to stay home the whole time? Jada is 12. She could see about that. You just leave Jada to see about Kira and Kayla. I thought it was your mother or your sister. Who? Them always busy. Jada could handle that. She cooking and cleaning a long time. And the next two, better know what time it is. It's only me, you know. I will talk to my mother. She just home these days. She will make sure the children okay. Alright. Let me see the moves for later.
Before you ramage, make sure the children okay. Call 996 to report all child abuse now. A message from the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
And we're back, continuing on the previous topic because it took a turn. The Prime Minister had various different defenses with regards to the failure of the Zoso bill. One, she preempted by not just saying that the independent bench was not necessarily independent because the president who appointed him is a low-level PNM functionary. I don't know how you could call a president low-level, but anyway, it is what it is. But also, not just the fact that she's pointed to the PNM seemingly doesn't care about their own racial demographic of supporters, but in between those two things, she made a claim that 2 out of the 9 independent senators apparently wanted a quid pro quo. They were offering votes for the bill with the expectation of personal favors in return. Personal favors implies corruption, not necessarily favors of, well, you do your government business and support me in my government business, right? Doesn't suggest that. And now, the problem for the Prime Minister is people are potentially calling her bluff. We don't necessarily know. We don't know if there are 2 independent senators that did this or not, right? All we know is that the Prime Minister claimed it on a social media post. So now, if that's true, what is the holdup? Because it's such a serious situation, people are calling it out. Some say it's vague or improper. Others say, listen, if it's that serious, let's call for an investigation. And I guess this is kind of potentially showing when you're in opposition, you can maybe throw these things out there. But when the PNM government threw things like this out there, I called them off it, so I'm going to call out the Prime Minister for it. If there's any truth to it, why is there no follow-up?
Well, the thing about it is that an investigation needs a formal report. The Prime Minister made a statement, like I said. You just mentioned it. Politicians make statements. Whether these statements have facts within it or they could support the validity of the facts or the evidence to support it is a different question altogether. So, yes, you're calling out persons with respect to that. It might just be a statement. But people, a lot of persons are asking, let us prove it, because they want to hear who is they want the name, they want the name of the individual or the senators, the independent senators who is allegedly claimed to have asked for favors. Now, how could that be? How could that happen with just statements? Someone has to make a formal report, and then an investigation will happen. But let's be real. Let us be realistic. Would you think that any one of those senators would say, "I did," or "I made a statement"? Mm-hmm. Let's be realistic. Nobody is going to say that I did it.
This is a situation where unless the Prime Minister has like a audio recording or a video recording, it's essentially a he said, she said.
He said. But the statement, it was a statement, and it just adds to the whole controversial issue of the Zoso's legislation not being able to pass, the bill not being able to pass because of the amount of emotions that are leading up to the bill, the lack of transparency in terms of informing the public how it is going to operate. And I understand it is not a simple process to say we're going to do A, B, and C. They may have to roll out certain things at different stages in the program. But what we are asking for, remember, this administration was given a mandate because of the fact that they're going to change certain things. Everybody, both who supported the United National Congress and who even supported the PNM, wants this government to make some change. Here why. If they don't make the changes or do certain things, it's to their advantage. So it's in any event, they'll have a hard time trying to put anything forward in terms of how they present it, because it's going to be a hard sell for them. I'm telling you, this is a very difficult bill to get passed. It has a lot of positives in it, but our culture and and what we have been clamoring for in terms of transparency in law enforcement, where we have a very low confidence in law enforcement. The public don't believe that given this type of powers, putting a zone of special operations and even bringing in the defense force to work with it's going to cause more problem than more conflict.
Because what the Americans did was basically what I have been trying to tell people. When you bring in military in a criminal situation, they're not going to act like police. They're going to act like military. They're trained to be military.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. Because I said this Wednesday, I believe, with Karen. One of the issues with when you have a sensitive issue like this is, if you keep bringing up the racial argument, even if that is on a practical level at the beginning, not an actual issue, it's going to become an issue. It's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the public is going to respond to it that way. Because the people now who feel abused are going to say, oh, it's because you color my skin. It's because, or the stigmatization factor. Because that's where some, like Independent Senator Dr. Marlene Natz, she also was making that argument. And I think one of the things is, it's not necessarily the legislation itself, but how they attempted to implement it. One of the things that you mentioned, and I agree with you, because you could see it on how it played out, they're rushing to do this to try to get it in place for the end of the SOE, right? And the fact that they have to tell the independent bench, well, we can't really look at your concerns in good faith and properly. We just need to rush this, right? But I feel as though, because you're rushing something like this, where people are saying, hey, this could stigmatize communities. These communities already were stigmatized in the past, not so?
They're already stigmatized.
So if you're not careful with how you roll out something like this, it will just compound the issue. And I think that's part of it. If you took your time with consultation, as you said Jamaica did, right? You take your time. If the opposition plays the fool and doesn't support it, but has no legitimate reason to not support it, that's different. But I think how the Senate debate played out, opposition, or at least the opposition Senate bench, doesn't look as though they were playing the fool now. Government didn't really give them a chance to make a mistake, because they were too busy rushing through their own mistake, right?
For me, I am hopeful that this bill gets a second opportunity.
Yeah, but it needs more time, right?
I am hopeful that this bill gets a second opportunity. A second opportunity for everybody to calm down, look at it from a Trinidad and Tobago perspective, logically, right? On both sides of the table, but everybody, both sides, look at it from that perspective, and understand it can only benefit citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and benefit particular communities in Trinidad and Tobago. Everyone has to look at it from both sides, the good, the positive, and the negative aspects of it. If at the end of the day, the negative outweigh the positive, I have no problem in saying, and listen to me, we can't go with a bill where it have more negatives than positive. But if the positives could outweigh the negatives, then I am saying, why not implement it for a period? Do a pilot project, do a pilot push towards it, and let us see a review program in the next a review.
I hate it. Well, they have the review in the legislation. The problem is the review does not automatically do anything to the law. So you can review it all you want, but unless they vote, I believe unless they vote against it, it'll stay. So you could, there is a possibility where the reviews are bad, but no one does anything to fix it.
So you should have something built into. I am saying I am not an expert in legislative law, but I am saying it should have some measures built in it.
The independent bench brought up the matter of a sunset clause, which to me seems very prudent. The AG said, well, we don't want the social programs to end, which to me is a very easy fix. You just have the social programs on a separate legislation. I feel parliamentarians generally are very lazy, by the way. And we've seen that in the past administration, and now we see it in this administration. It's like, why does it have to be one bill? So, because a sunset clause will be a major compromise that could have gotten the independent bench's support. They only needed 4. So one of the things that kind of makes the Prime Minister's argument that the independent bench is corrupt is she only said there were 2. There were 7 other independent senators. You couldn't find some way to compromise with them to get this through?
This legislation, in my opinion, this is my opinion, I just don't want support.
You want buy-in?
I want citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and our elected representatives on both sides of the table, right, to understand what this legislation would have done and the consequences of this bill for Trinidad and Tobago.
Because you've been consistent.
Right?
This could have helped the communities.
I am talking about citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. This has nothing to do with politics or race. Criminals in Trinidad and Tobago, hold on, this is my view, I keep saying it.
Yeah.
Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are the ones who committing the crimes. So we are trying to safeguard citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
But I hate to say this, but I believe this legislation is more politically motivated than we would like. Whether or not that the concept has value, which I believe it is. They found a concept that has value. But the fact that they're rushing to get it on the tail end of the ministry tells me, no, it's our politics. The fact that the Minister of Defense, the way how he justifies it, is very different to the AG, or at least in some critical ways, implies it's very political. I just want to go back to the Prime Minister's accusations, because there are also 2 arguments that makes it a very negative situation, assuming that it is true, assuming that there are 2 senators that did this. Well, 3 really. One is what I just said. Even if 2 are corrupt, there are 7 other independent senators, but you're kind of painting them in a broad brush, right? But you didn't try to get engaged with the other 7 to get their support. I know what you just said, but I'm just saying politically, right?
Yes.
Now, Israel Khan brought up something very key. You're accusing 2. But it's similar to what we see in the police service now. The minority is causing reputational harm to the majority.
Yes.
The defense of a situation that is perceived to be, and I believe rightfully so, indefensible, is basically sinking the reputation of the whole service. You attack 2 independent senators, and it's anonymous, so now all of the independent bench is under suspicion.
And that is where we keep using now. Whether the accusation, and like I said, we agree that whether it is true or not, we don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're not saying that the statement is a statement of fact. But it's just, when you make statements like those, when you make statements, it doesn't augur well across the board for everybody. Right?
Well, I have a second point. So would you agree with this? I think there is another possibility that comes up all too often that the public is unaware of when it comes up, and that it might be coming up, in that politicians don't actually formally look to get the criminal justice system involved whenever they have accusations like this, because they don't actually want to solve the problem. So you want to say, oh, these independent senators did it. But if you actually filed the complaint with the police and got the investigation rolling, potentially more might be uncovered in a wider scale practice in Parliament, which could indirectly implicate you. So you don't want to open that Pandora's box, but you do want to cast shade. You do want to throw mud. So you'll throw the accusation out there. But when the police come and say, hey, you want us to do anything about it? You're like, no. Nothing to see here, it's fine. Because I do believe a lot of times corruption is not, they say that the other side is corrupt, but we don't see any actual charges, accusations, reports made to the police. Why?
Challenge we continue to face is that no matter how you treat with it, whether an investigation has been conducted, you will always have a percentage who will not be satisfied with the outcome of an investigation.
But
hold on,
the amount of accusations both parties throw at each other.
And that is what I'm saying.
And the police seemingly never gets anything.
But the issue here is that, do we have confidence enough? Because the police organization, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, sometimes appears to be politically aligned.
Right, but I think that's a separate issue.
No, so that is what I'm saying. So even when an investigation is sent to them,
yes,
if the outcome is that there is no evidence to support any charges, there will always be some persons who are conspiracy theorists who say they are aligned with one, so they're not finding no evidence. We have to step over that. We have to get somehow or the other, we have to be able to get over that hurdle where we could trust our institutions who are independent, and when they're independent, whatever they say or whatever decision that they made, we respect the independence of the body. Notwithstanding, our constitution states how those individuals are to be appointed. That is a challenge we have, because if we always say that how those individuals are being appointed, then means that we have to have complete constitutional reform in how we have in some of our bodies, in some of our organization, how let's say how the office of the president, how that person is elected now. Because if we keep going on the position of, if I was politically aligned and I get the position, it means that I cannot be independent because I was already politically aligned. Everybody in Trinidad and Tobago at some point in time has a political alignment because they went and voted.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that the fact that I am no longer...
Well, not everybody votes.
Well, sorry.
There are some, I think one caller they call in and say maybe like this might have been the first time they voted or they never voted.
I stand corrected. The vast majority of Trinidadians at some point in time may have voted, some never voted.
Yes,
however,
they might have voted once. Yeah.
Not voting does not mean that you have opinions or you prefer an organization, one political party or the other. It's just that you didn't vote. But I'm just simply saying that we all have our opinions on both sides. Our opinions, if we're talking about transparency and moving forward as a country, we have to respect democracy.
Well, let's transition to the next topic, right? Because it speaks to this directly. And I'll say this, there are times when I think people look at more autocratic leadership and they think that's better than democracy. And I'll say this, I actually do think that right now, or at least in the past, when it was the Queen, the UK's monarchy was a better situation than our ceremonial presidency.
Yeah.
Because our president is appointed, whereas the monarch is not. Now, if you get a bad monarch at a time when the monarch actually has to do something with a practical function, that might sink this, which is why, democracy is a thing. Because if you just kind of use something arbitrary like heredity, there's a chance you just get a bad egg, right? Yes. However, it goes to now the situation that we find ourselves in, trust and confidence, because there were situations in the PNM that eroded trust and confidence in the police.
Yes.
It's low. The government met a situation where it's low. They brought a former police officer to be Minister of Homeland Security. They had this whole rollout with increased enforcement of road traffic violations at the same time that they increased the fines. Yes. So that had a negative perception. And then they had the shooting. And then there was no official statement from people in charge about the shooting. Then the first person of any sort of authority that speaks out about it is the one member of the police executive that has the most questions over her with regards to issues on transparency and accountability. And I'm not necessarily blaming her for it. I actually think you blame her boss, because he should have been the first one to speak about it. But then when he spoke about it, what he had to say, the actual content of what he had to say, was far worse than what anything DCP Martin said. DCP Martin just has a background that makes it inappropriate for the service to depend on her to be the spokeswoman. Whereas he now, as the commissioner, who doesn't have baggage, who has a positive perception when he was appointed, comes out and says things that to me are crazy. And now the Minister of Homeland Security is doubling down on that and basically pointing to the fact that, oh, we don't know the whole situation, when at the end of the day, the entire public saw a man with his hands up and getting gunned down. Seconds after, it looked as though he was surrendering.
So, without prejudicing any statement that anybody makes, I am commenting on what the general public will be commenting on, which is the video.
Right.
That cannot be, that opinion or the opinions of the persons on who are viewing that video right now, you cannot change their opinions. You cannot change their perspective of that video. You know why they cannot change it? Persons may reflect on a situation that they or their family would have been faced with a potential, where they were also victims of a police-involved shooting and how it turned out to be. The general public is looking at that. So you cannot stop anybody from posting that video or commenting on the video. The reason being, it is already out there, right? So the issue is not about the video and the person's commenting on the video. They are free to comment on the video. How we treat with that, and I keep saying it, based on crisis management and communications, this is a crisis management, full-scale crisis management situation where you had a police-involved shooting where a lot of questions are being asked about the nature of it, which has been shown to the general public. Note, this video did not come from official sources in terms of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service national CCTV footage. They didn't come from any body camera footage. It came from private citizens that shared that footage to the general public. Yes, it has evidential value for the ongoing investigation. My question is that based on the information that was given to the general public about the incident, where it started and how it ended, the period that no one knows about in terms of the hot pursuit issue, I am simply saying, in the circumstance right now, the hot pursuit issue it becomes null and void.
Right.
Because during the hot pursuit issue, all the risk associated with that person driving reckless on the highway, where there was a risk, all of that would have been negated when this accident took place.
Also, reckless driving is not anything that warrants a firearm shooting response.
It doesn't.
Right?
But this incident here, where the public has seen it, is shown on social media, where there is also video with sound.
Yes.
That compounds everything.
Well, stick up in on that, because I want to get into this with regards to evidence put out there and apparent attempts to censor the public. We do have Diego Martin, a line caller. Good morning, you're on here.
Right. Good morning, Sean, and good morning to, I don't want to say retired ESP, but I still respecting your ESP. I want to talk about several points, but the first one I want to talk about, that video that basically was in Bassey Street. The author of that video, in a state of emergency, we have to be careful what information we're giving out there. And if that tantamount to public mischief, all right, that is one point. But I want to go to a more significant issue that is playing out in the public now. And I'm going to make a comment. If the UNC had 38 seats in the lower house, that configuration, and the PNM had 1, what would have been the most likely outcome in the Senate vote? That is point 1. Point 2, Parliament is the highest court, and we have to respect it from that. With respect to law making a body, and we have to respect the information. Some might be frivolous, some might be all kind of thing. But a senator came out with some significant information with respect to the Akil Chambers murder. I know it has been a cold case, and I'm hoping that the police intervene with that, have a discussion with that senator, and to find out the true outcome. That investigation, that cold case, would significantly improve the image of the TTPS. Because that's what the coroner, who has gone to the Great Beyond, has said. The police was complicit with that information. That investigation is a simple one. Most of the people who attended that party is there. And the perpetrator, as alleged by the senator, would have had people around him if he was in the party there. So it's an easy thing to relook at it, revisit it, and do an investigation. The third point, it have an issue with a former police commissioner with respect to the merit list, and the Police Service Commissioner, I think, is a bliss. In that reading in the court case, I am seeing in the newspaper where the Police Service Chairman, Ms. Bliss, said the person who convened the meeting where the merit list was allegedly moved away, and I think a former Prime Minister said he was responsible for it. Was that meeting a conspiracy to cause that merit list not to go to the Parliament? And why has the police not intervened? Is either KCR, the former Prime Minister, said he do it and he taken the bounce, but did the President facilitated that? I know they say the President is high, but nobody is above the court. And I'm going to juxtapose that with a senator, a sitting senator now, who brought the courts, the appeal court judges, 2 of them, into disrepute when he said he had basically WhatsApp messages or conversation where the appeal court judges, who he didn't identify, he says 2 of them, basically tell him, okay, the independent opposition, no, the opposition senator was rude and all kind of thing. Alvera, I don't want to call his name, that had significant issue with what is happening today, because the president at that time, President Weeks, was complicit in not investigating that. 2, the former Chief Justice was also complicit in not investigating that. Now, the current Chief Justice would have been tainted with that allegation. So he has a role to play now. And the sitting president has a role to play in finding out if that senator, he was tainted then, the fact that he brought the court into disrepute, the appeal court, and he was chosen again as a senator. I'm saying no more. Go on. Have a nice morning.
Thanks, Caller. A lot to get through. I'll try and be quick. First of all, I don't think the Chief Justice or the President can investigate anything. So even if it's something that happens in the Senate, if it's like a criminal situation, I don't think they have jurisdiction. One of the other things is with regards to the merit list debacle, we seem to have a gap when high office holders don't follow procedures outlined in law. We saw this also with the Auditor General situation where the Minister of Finance seemingly was doing a lot to try to circumvent, undermine, or indirectly dismiss and replace the Auditor General. And there seemingly is no body to actually come in and enforce the fact that, hey, This is the sitting of the Senate where you're supposed to lay the report in Parliament, not ask for an extension that the Auditor General didn't ask for, right? And in similar, so he broke what the law said he had to do when he got the report. He was supposed to put it in the Senate at whatever, it was the first or the second Senate meeting, whatever, once he gets the report. It is laid out for him when he had to put it in the Senate. He didn't. He asked for an extension. The Auditor General did not ask him for the extension. So that is probably 2 bits of improper procedure to the point where you could argue it's a major violation, not just like a minor administrative error. Similarly, there's nothing in the legislation that says that the list could be sent back. The manner of which it was done, the Prime Minister attempted to not reveal the fact or not acknowledge the fact that he was there until sometime later. Now, there's nothing in the law that says that it can't be sent back. But based on Karen's interpretation of the law as a legal academic, the law basically says the president gets it and she passes it on. Not the president gets it, has a chance to assess it and send it back. Because at any day, when they had to reconstitute the Service Commission anyway, they had to put Guy Griffith's name on the list anyway. And they went through the proper process anyway. So that whole thing was a complete waste of time. But it potentially was a violation of our laws. We have a remoney line. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Sure, Michael Small, good morning to you.
Morning,
and to Officer Ali.
Morning, sir.
Go ahead, caller.
I get muted.
No, you're on the air.
Hello?
You're on the air, caller. We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. I want to say this. Let us give the police the benefit of the doubt, right? Let us say Mr. Samaru and the girl did shoot behind him, of which nobody got hurt, a vehicle didn't get scratched, or anything like that. They chased them down the highway. He crashed into a drain, he put up his 2 hands. Wouldn't it have been more prudent to arrest him and carry him to court than you kill him? And this is what the minister is trying to prove to me here. Now, what I also want to say is this. I disagree with your rationale about the president. And why I say that, I think the president should be elected by the people, rather than just be appointed by a party. That would give a little credence to the office. Yeah. Because without the president, no amount of laws that Parliament pass would be enacted. None. And I think civil society should have nominees, and the citizenry vote on who we want to be the president. And with regards to the Zoso bill, I listened to the end. And the Attorney General keep talking about a threat and a threat and a threat and a threat, and he's not telling us what is the threat. So, to me, I think he wants this bill passed to save the life of some politician who he feels is under threat, and not necessarily the citizenry. For me, this Zoso bill should come with consultation from civil society and everybody understand what it is they want to enact before you try to force it down people's throats. What this party campaigned on before the elections and what they're doing now is completely different. I don't know if it's a Jedi mind trick that the Prime Minister is trying to pull on the population. Because I want to draft your mind back to one little thing. Remember before the St. Vincent elections, Anna Roberts came out to talk about corruption in the housing ministry with former Prime Minister
Ralph Gonsalves
and his children and his wife having homes. And then the gentleman lost the elections, Mr. Ralph Gonsalves. What has come out of that investigation? And if you understand that that was just a smokescreen and old talk, this talk with the Prime Minister with 2 independent senators coming to ask for a favor for the vote, I think that is also old talk to him. let her come with the evidence and show us. Because you gotta be seen, and all this tweeted can't work. I would listen off a good program as usual.
Thank you, caller. I just want to say, I'm not necessarily supporting the situation of how the president is selected. That's why I said the monarchy in England at times looks better because at least the past queen did the job that well. That she's a cultural icon in part because of how she handled her responsibilities, which are far more oppressive than you might think, right? The fact that she's not appointed and they are very strict on being apolitical makes that situation on a day-to-day practice far better than what we have where an appointed president, it's very difficult to say the appointed president is apolitical and unbiased, right? I'm not giving the police in this situation benefit of the doubt. I'm sorry, because as you pointed out, how we saw the situation play out. How you saw the situation play out, and I'll go back to former Commissioner Griffith's words, right? But at the end of the day, were they afraid for their lives? I would argue if that's the case, maybe they shouldn't be police officers if they're that easily spooked.
The reality is that not many persons could give them the benefit of the doubt at this point in time because the video itself speaks volumes.
And we have a caller, but I just want to say, the Minister for Homeland Security is saying, well, you know, we need evidence and we don't have all the evidence and we're not going to reveal the evidence because we shouldn't reveal the evidence. I'm like, that's an excuse. I'm not going to believe you have evidence that you just magically claim to have when the actual evidence that's out there, evidence that apparently based on what the Minister for Homeland Security said in the past, Opposition Chief Whip Marvin Gonzalez brought this up, right? Or referenced this. You wanted to make it against the law to criticizing and putting out certain things on social media. And based on what the commissioner is saying where he's asking people not to reveal anything more to the public, it's just compounding the fact that it looks like they're trying to cover it up. Because based on the vision of events that the commissioner tried to sell the public, it was very much not in line with the video. So is it that he knew and lied? Or is it that he didn't know, was lied to, like McDonald Jacobs, and is now just for whatever reason not willing to understand that you can't just hand wave this away. We have Arima on the line. Caller, good morning. Train City. Arima was the last caller before. Train City, good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. Sean, morning to you again.
Morning.
Sean, but I don't know what to say, boy. I think we're not isolating, we're not solving problems because we're not identifying the problem. So every 5 years, what we come up with is the nuances of the problem and it biting us in the behind. Right? The police service needs overhauling. What we witnessed on that video is murder. The policeman who shot up that car should be sent on administrative leave pending an investigation. Same old, same old. And that is it. Because the evidence is clear and blatant. Right? We could paint a lot of different scenarios about the chase and so on. They were murdered. Right? And we have murderers employed with the police service, alleged, I would say, until the process is exhausted, until they get due process, they should be home helping the children with their homework on administrative leave. Right? Ideologically, the police service is an extension of the PNM. That's the ideology. They are distilled they emerged from the distillery of Balizé juice, and that has been so for the last 40 years. The police service and the civil service always formed part of the ideological vote bank of the people's national movement. You can't get away from that, right? And the issues with your caller raised an issue with regard to the Akil Chambers debacle. That is because the police refuse to investigate. There are things that they have to investigate in which they refuse to investigate, and it sits on a shelf because it will implicate some senior politician who are they be holding to. And that's the problem we have. The police service not independent. So you have a young commissioner who comes up through the ranks, probably good at his job, pass all his exams, God be praised, glad for the boy. He towing the line, right? And he was trained to toe the line within the police service. right? I know things that I should not have known, right? And I cannot mention it only because I had a very senior cousin in my family who was an assistant DPP. Well, God rest his soul now. So all that he told me about and all that I know about with regard to police and crime back in the 80s, it's gone to the grave with him, you know, and all those files buried. So that's the problem we have. So the current government, the Persad BCS administration have to fix things. That is what they are paid to do, to fix things. Now, blessed in disguise. Forget the zone of operational, what you call it. You have a problem right now to fix the police service, right? You have to suspend those police officers. And this is an opportunity to overhaul the police service. You understand? Zone of special operations. Now, the independent senators, 9 of them, can say, hey, let us contribute something to this, to our country with regard to the zone of special operation. We have seen where a video where police officers shut up a car with surrendering people, right? Good. You're independent. Go to the administration. Say, hey, let's fix it. Take your credibility, independent senators, and let's go and fix this. Ideologically, to the independent senators have always been, I always used to call them independent PNM senators. This is an opportunity for them to step out as independents and fix this nonsense, right? And I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Anytime I bring up the example of Lee Kuan Yew, I just get shoot down. Oh, Lee Kuan Yew this, that. Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore gained independence at point A. The man in charge says, this is how we run things to vex, that is your business. To vex laws. We're doing it the proper way. You understand? And I told this program once that the first extrajudicial killing, to my mind, in our lifetime, was when the first this guy was shot by a police officer from an upstairs building on Frederick Street into Woodward Square. That was an extrajudicial killing during the Black Power movement, right? And the problems have not improved ever since. But we have hope. Stay good, stay safe.
Thank you, caller. All right, quickly, the independent bench in this situation, I think, did enough that it doesn't matter to me to question if they have political biases or not in the long run. They did enough where I didn't see political biases coming into play. They were like, we want amendments, not just opposing for opposing's sake. And the government were like, no, we're rushing this through. And it's like, when you're curtailing the rights of citizens, a rush job is not necessarily something that is advisable. Yes, you could say that certain cases imply that, like the Brent Thomas affair, imply political influence over the TTPS when the PNM is in power. However, there's a former police officer that is Minister of Homeland Security. I think there's now, at the very least, competing political interests. The executive is very political. Not because they support parties, but because they have career ambitions that seemingly, to them, override the whole sense of duty to the country and all of that jive. That's why so many good officers seemingly stay at certain ranks much lower than Assistant Commissioner of Police. You know? Most of the sensical stuff coming on the public-facing side of TTPS doesn't come from the executive. I wonder why is that, right? I mean, just look at the appointment of the commissioner. For various ways, you could say it's been political all the way through. Except maybe the last one. But now you have to wonder, the current commissioner is in lockstep with the Minister of Homeland Security. What does that mean? Well, we have certain high-profile cases where politics apparently is perceived or believed to be involved that we haven't gotten a resolution yet. And the government, the current government, who's a different political party, is seemingly more than willing to ignore those situations and to let sleeping dogs lie. I wonder why. We have another call on the line. I do want to get back with Ashraf on the topic on the shooting further to expand it further, but we'll take the next call. Caller, good morning. Last call.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. I would like to touch on the independent senators. The Prime Minister would have made certain allegations. I think that it needs to be thoroughly investigated. The DPP, the police, and everybody else should get involved and have this thing thoroughly investigated. I know for a fact that there were two people in my mind, and I say it's factual because it's me. What I believe in is that, they're a little bit shady. One is presently in the Senate, and one, a lady, I wouldn't call her name, but as soon as she exited, I've been following the independent senators for a while, and she would have given senior position on state boards, and I understand there are certain people in the Senate now who would have received state briefs in the past under the PNM regime. So, it begs the question. The second point I want to make is that, with that shooting, you're looking at what we have seen, what is given to us. Yes, to me, it's use of extra force. But I want to remind people that there were two individuals in the vehicle, and you only saw two hands. So I'm wondering if it is that the police were still fearing for their lives, seeing that there was another individual in the vehicle who could have been probably armed or didn't have any weapon at all. So I do not want to prejudice, by way of statement, anything. I would allow the investigation to take place. I'm certain that they would have footage coming down the highway and stuff that would probably help us. Or maybe the police have information, as the commissioner would have said, that he was advised legally, do not get it out in the public space. So it's against that background, I am not pronouncing right or wrong, but let the investigation take place. With respect to the presidency, I think it should be put on the ballot paper, election time, and let the population vote for them, as well as the Attorney General. Those are two important public offices that I think the Attorney General should come from, the judiciary, the member of a high court judge or something, where we seem to be pretty good in terms of integrity with our judges. So I'm just thinking, that those are things we should do. And it is a jokey thing, because the PNM continued to raise base, because I was listening in the Senate with Dolly Yasby, I think it was, yes. She said, if you look like a PNM and you smell like a PNM, you would be discriminated against. I don't know if the PNM would have had a perfume line so they could be identified by the smell. Thank you very much, my friend. Have a nice day.
Thank you, caller. Well, I know people who were fired because they look like a PNM. That's point number one. Certain institutions had their turnover, and maybe they're slow rolling it, but it's happening. That's point number two. To what extent, when she says PNM, that's not race baiting, that's political baiting, to be fair. That's point number three. Point number four, what happened before the chase is irrelevant. Point number five, the minister and the commissioner maybe made indirect Freudian slips. They are defending the situation by saying, look, you don't know what happened before, which again, based on what we've seen, is practically irrelevant. And I would argue just about any right-thinking jurisdiction, legal mind would also agree that it's irrelevant, right? Former Commissioner Griffith believes it's irrelevant. I'll play the clip before the show's over. But more importantly, there's the Freudian slip. They bring up what happened before, which again, on a practical level, is a poor defense because it's irrelevant to the shooting. They never bring up what the police officers may have seen in the car. They never say, oh, they feared for their life because they saw somebody do something that looks suspicious. They never said the young lady did anything. They never said that. More importantly, if she was brandishing a gun, if it was a case where the officer said, gun, 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 saw that she was pointing a gun at them and that's why they shot. Two things. One, they shot through Mr. Samaru. That's improper rules of engagement right there. Two, is she arrested? Is she in custody? Is she under police guard? I'm not entirely sure if she's charged with anything. It seems as though nothing has come out to push back on the fact that her lawyer is calling for action, but it's sounding not on her lawyer is trying to defend her when she's arrested. It sounds more like her lawyer is gearing up for a lawsuit, right? Trinidad and Tobago courts have repeatedly affirmed that where the state uses force, the burden lies on the state to justify. The justifications are poor. That no more than reasonable force was employed. The High Court confirmed that force must be strictly necessary, proportionate, and never punitive. And against this backdrop, Public remarks suggesting that counseling and not accountability may be the primary institutional response are deeply troubling. Because if, as former Commissioner Griffith said, if they need counseling, because it was so traumatic for them when they killed somebody, should they then be allowed to continue with their normal patrol duties as usual? At least in the immediate, and when I say immediate, like the days after, a couple of weeks after?
Sean, there was no clarification in the context of counseling.
I understand that.
And that is where I think the public got how it was communicated.
Yes.
It was received in a different light.
Yes.
Part and parcel of all police procedures, once an officer has discharged his weapon, if it's a fatal incident, he or she must go to get counseling. It's a traumatic event for the officer because at the end of the day, someone lost their life. It can affect the officer in many different ways. So that's part and parcel of the process. That wasn't explained to the public to understand that is part of the process. It came across as the officers need counseling and the family is the officers.
Yeah, is the priority.
It's a part of a procedure, and the procedure must always be adopted.
But they basically just spoke to one small aspect of the procedure.
It came across when I listened to somebody comments about these officers that have some problem. I said,
you can't blame the commenters,
I can't blame the commenters. And I felt hurt. I felt hurt because that is part and parcel of our procedures.
I can't remember if I said this with you last week, but I think the worse that the trust and confidence get, the more you're going to probably have to scapegoat some officers in order to try to just get things back right. Not necessarily get innocent officers and frame them. But my point is, I understand maybe that technically it's not a suspension, right? And you don't want to say that you're suspending them because it might make them look guilty.
Yes.
But when you say it publicly, it looks as though you're defending these officers. And I'm saying you're defending them to the point where you are causing all of the other officers to be under disrepute because you're defending these officers in a manner that is public communications oriented, not reasonable.
And there must always be, once you engage or you have been engaged in discharging your weapon, persons are saying you're trained for that. You are trained to go on the range and shoot at a target. You are not trained, police officers are not trained to go and kill persons. Even soldiers have post-traumatic stress after that. So in that little engagement, the officers would have been remorseful because they didn't intend to. No one goes out there, and I can speak for myself goes out.
I hate to say this, but objection, Your Honor, you are speculating.
Hold on. What I'm saying is that police officers don't go out there, and I'm talking about the average police officer.
Yes.
Do not come to work every day and say, I'm going to kill someone. Right? If that is what your intention, then you're no longer a police officer, you're on a different side of the table. And I'm saying that sometimes you get involved in situations. This is not an excuse for anybody.
Yes.
It's just understanding that, yes, we have to have some sympathy for both sides of the table and empathize with what transpired. It does not change the investigation of the outcome. It doesn't change that investigation. The investigation must continue.
I wanna emphasize a point by going to a clip that we showed yesterday of former Commissioner Griffith, which particularly there's a part in the middle where he speaks about circumstances that happened before the shooting incident, amongst other things. And he also, to some extent, speaks about the political consequences of this situation. Let's run the clip.
has nothing to do with the government. The government, I continue to state, I think they did the correct thing by pushing Zoso. I see the importance of it. I think it will have assisted. But people are fearful of police abuse of authority. Further, because of this situation, there's a standard operational procedure, a departmental order, that standing order making it mandatory for police officers to use body cameras. And this commission has refused to implement that. So because of these things, had we put that mandatory procedure for police officers to have to use the body cameras, had we, the Commissioner of Police, use international best practice and have these officers who were involved in the shooting go immediately on administrative leave, if those things were done, it would have minimized the concern that many persons in this country have of this country becoming a virtual police state. That is the problem. The problem lies, I think, the Commissioner has single-handedly destroyed this bill, and nothing is being said or done by the Police Service Commission because they have no training, experience, or qualification in law enforcement, in minimum use of force, in international best practice. So they have stayed silent, allowing the Commissioner and the Welfare Association to make stupid comments, and with those comments, you are seeing police officers involved in a shooting with someone surrendering, and then the Commissioner has the audacity to say, well, what, you all didn't see what happened earlier. That is irrelevant. That alone shows his ignorance in understanding minimum use of force. Someone could be shooting at police officers. They run miles away or the next day and they drop their weapon and their hands are in the air. You can't use that based on vengeance on what you did before. Just by the Commissioner stating that, it seems that his knowledge as it pertains to community policing, minimum use of force policy, understanding international best practice, understanding the importance of public trust and confidence, he does not understand. So his actions recently on behalf of the police service has totally affected public trust and confidence in the police service, with the Police Service Commission doing nothing. So let us understand the ZOSO is something, a bill I really hope that the country could understand the importance of this. And because so many people are concerned, it is because of the erratic, irrational behavior by the Commissioner of Police not to adhere to international best practice and refusing to adhere to standing orders. If this was done, we would not have the problem we have right now, where unfortunately the criminals yet again may very well have the upper hand.
And after former Commissioner Griffith made that statement, Minister Alexander basically reiterated some of those same points that Griffith criticized in that video. You don't know what happened before, you don't know what happened before. Marv Gonzalez came out to say, well, and then also there's the fact that this is the same minister that was suggesting maybe we should have laws to limit social media posts and criticisms, or something to that effect. Opposition Chief said Alexander does not understand entrenched constitutional rights and freedoms, or the obligation of public bodies such as the DPS to be transparent. He doesn't grasp that those in high office are accountable to the public and are not immune from justifiable criticism. If he did, he would have made such an outrageous statement. And Griffith...
you see, when you make statements, when you make a statement like that...
Whose?
When the Minister Alexander made a statement like that, when you want to read, when persons making social media posts, persons reflect on that post with respect to the police-involved shooting. That is a broad-based statement when it comes to how persons make social media posts, because we have situations where persons make threats on social media, social media.
Right, that's different.
So the statement itself, yes, we must have some type of legislation where persons will be held accountable for what they post on social media. But this incident cannot be placed in the same category as to how you put information on social media irresponsibly.
A caller asked, which to be honest, because I think a lot of other callers didn't realize where this caller's perception and issue lies. And it's very not in line with his previous criticisms of the police service. He asked if this releasing of this video was inciting the public during a state of emergency. And I would argue the answer to that is no, at the very least because the public, the importance of the issue to the public far outweighs any potential negative, right? It's similar in a way to freedom of speech laws. You have freedom of speech in certain countries, but you still can't yell out fire in a theater and cause a panic. But I don't think this caused a panic enough to say that the public good that it provided, the need to release it, is outweighed by inciting a panic.
I have always been saying that we always get one side of a story. And if you have one side of the story, you draft your narrative based on one side, limited information, half the information.
Right.
I understand, and this is not defending anybody, defend any police service. I understand the views of the general public and the views of the commissioner and the views of the minister. I understand all of those views. The commissioner has to be as objective as possible, right? He has to be as objective as possible and show that he and the organization wants to know that he will support the support his officers in the execution of their duties. We appreciate that. That is what our commissioner is supposed to do. Stand by us when we carry out our duties. However, I am saying you must respect the public views because the public views are relevant because they don't have enough confidence in the police.
So case in point, one of his communication errors, which has far greater consequences than the actual error itself, he said that they're not on suspension. Former Commissioner Griffith said they should have been placed on administrative leave. And the thing is, the commissioner is not lying in the sense of, all right, no suspension, because those two things are not the same. But he didn't bring up the fact whether or not they are on administrative leave. And it's almost like if he didn't realize, maybe I should tell the public.
Especially in a situation like this incident, this specific incident, where you have video footage that has been circulating and a lot of commentary about this. These officers, in being a human, if I would put myself in that position, I would feel that I did something wrong, right? Carrying on my duties and I'm being victimized. Fair enough, right? Even if it's on suspension. But I'm saying it may be in the best interest of the officers to be relieved of some of their duties for now.
Right.
Or even if you bring it in and say, listen, I don't want you outside anymore because for a couple of because of the traumatic confrontation that you got yourself in and the public interest it can add more conflict to yourself. It's about understanding the balance in how these things operate. We can't view administrative leave as suspension because that is not suspension. You have not been found guilty of doing anything wrong. An investigation must be carried out. But at the same time, the public needs to understand, the public is asking about transparency. The mere fact that this is the footage that we saw here and that has been shared by the public gave or supports some of the compounds the views of many of police abuse, right, in certain situations. How many police-involved shootings did we get footage, even from the police perspective in terms of a body camera footage, to negate the fears that the officers that were acting within the law? We don't have any footage coming out. And the public is asking, what is the purpose of the body cameras? It works, and I said it works both ways. Right? It supports the actions of the police, good or wrong. It supports the action of the
body cameras.
The body cameras, yes, of the public, good or right or wrong. This gives a fair, objective.
I think the lawyer, view. The statement I said about, it was the lawyer of Ms. Seeley, that the burden lies on the state to justify the use of force, which I think to some extent is true, right? You can't, because you shoot somebody, it's investigated automatically.
Yes.
Or it should be, right? And at the end of the day, the state cannot shy away from the hard truth if the circumstances says this was unjustifiable. And I think the commissioner is appearing to be very unobjective, right? I understand wanting to support your troops, but the problem is you cannot blindly support your troops because that's like spoiling a child. And then you'll end up with a spoiled child that cannot interact with society in a mature manner and causes far more problems, right, than you trying to help them in this one time, you know. The consequences are
you know,
far more detrimental.
Persons are making it, the statement of counseling as a negative thing. Law enforcement across the world.
Yes, yes.
That is standard procedure when you discharge your weapon. you have to be cleared psychologically, because if you're not cleared psychologically to continue performing, it means that when you discharge your weapon,
the issue was, as you rightfully pointed out, the issue was not them getting counseling. The issue was, he said they're not being suspended and they're getting counseling. Didn't say if they were being put on administrative leave. Didn't say how.
Yes.
Right, so it just, the appearance is horrible.
So the public is stating that the counseling should not be for the officers, but for the family who lost. Right, these are the ones who should be victims.
And what you say, rightfully speaking, the counsel is standard operating procedure, right? The counsel is standard operating procedure. So there's not about presumption of guilt or innocence.
No, it's a process,
right? Let's take the comments. I see we have some comments there. Well, the first comment I think is to do with a different topic there. The system should be shaped whether the employed retired can always meet the basic cost of living. I understand that. I get where you're coming from. There's a wider economic conversation that maybe we're kind of waiting on more information to come out, but given the fact that certain bars and other, you could see small anecdotal examples of people experiencing economic crunch, but it doesn't necessarily show what the actual bigger picture is. So I don't want to say too much about it. Did you all see the video footage that shows that instead of police moving swiftly to assist the injured, the police were moving like headless chickens around? Also, they allowed civilians there. Here's the thing. After pumping what I believe the Express counted 19 shots, I didn't count myself, but it seems like more bullets than necessary into the targets. They were still saying, don't move, when I don't know. If I was hit multiple times, who knows, maybe he was hit in the head and he's no longer in control of his motor functions. We don't know. They were aiming high. They didn't go through the door. It seems as though they were shooting through the window. They were that close where it was a turkey shoot. Let's just, rifles that close, that's a turkey shoot. So I also do find it interesting because this is where one shot, one kill, in the sense of, well, the police, you fire a 3-round burst into a target. That should be enough to incapacitate anybody. But anyway, that's a judgment call, right? But yes, I found that they were very much, even after the suspects were shot, and some would say shot all to hell, they were still apparently concerned about the threat to their own lives. I don't know, maybe if they had body cameras, we could see their perspective, but unfortunately, a certain minister decided that body cameras were not a priority. And now he's wanting to say, oh, you need evidence. Yeah, we have evidence. Now it's up to you to find some evidence to contradict what this evidence makes the situation out to be. Let's go on. Alexander said, if you see something, say something. Now he's saying something else. No. I think the implication was, if you see something, say something to the police, so then the police can determine if they want to cover it up or not. Sorry, I understand that's a low blow. I understand that's a low blow. But hey, given what the commissioner and the minister have been saying in the last few months, it seems as though they very much want to control the narrative, and not in a good way, right? Not in a good way. Let's go on. Caller, if that was your son, you would not talk like that. That is true. And I think nobody should assume that it can't happen to you. Even people with light-colored skin, they have Venezuelans being arrested, being involved in violent crime, potentially being assassinated in gang violence. So I don't think there's anybody, right? And listen, the police have found drugs in more richer areas. So I don't think there's anybody that thinks that this thing can come and potentially affect them. If it was not for that video, the police would have covered it up. The problem is based on the commissioner's statements, both before and after the video was released. That is the implication, that he has done nothing to assuage our fears of.
So, prior to this incident, how many incidents of police-involved shootings have we had official released from the policing side to alleviate the fears of the public or the level of transparency? We don't, because there's always never body camera footage. We never have any CCTV footage to release to the public. It's always about someone in their footage from personal videos or camera footage from private citizens that we see certain things happening and narratives and commentary coming from it. And I'm saying the body cameras need to be utilized not by every single police officer, but if the officers are on specific patrols,
if they have alleles
on operations, put on your body cameras, and I agree, it should be part and parcel. And if you fail to put it on, disciplinary action should be held. You should be held up. Put on your cameras.
This is the thing. What also implicates the Minister and the Commissioner in this is that in various ways of how they treated the issue, it comes across like they are fine with not having body cameras, to the point where you could even speculate that they actively don't want body cameras.
I wouldn't go as far as saying that.
I would.
You would, but I wouldn't. I would not, because I understand from my personal experience. There was a decision. It may not have been the best interest at this point in time. There was a decision made for the bulletproof vest. That is one aspect of it. Sean, we can agree to this.
No, wait. Because of time, I just want to cut to the chase.
Yes.
At the end of the day, right? Let's put it this way. Would you accept a budget cut for firearms or bulletproof vests or batons or pepper spray on the police? Would you think that would be reasonable?
No, it would not be
reasonable.
reasonable.
And why are body cameras somehow considered less important?
Sean, there are
issue.
body cameras within the organization at this point in time.
And the executive has proven that they are unwilling to tell people in an entity where if I give you a reasonable order, you cannot disobey it without punishment. But hey, we advise police officers. We hope that police officers wear body cameras. Please, this is what Junior Benjamin.
Sean, 10,000 body cameras will not do anything to build trust and confidence if it is sitting down in these stations.
Well, exactly, that's my point.
So that's my point. So we already have body cameras.
Nobody is ordering the police.
So then
all the way up to the Prime Minister, who endorses use of body cameras. But that statement alone means nothing. It's supposed to be from the government down to the police are telling the officers this is mandatory. This is not optional. But the way how it's been phrased by the police executive and the government is, well, if you can, you can. If you can't, it's fine. We'll just tell the people that they don't know what they're talking about when a video shows 3 officers shoot up a man with his hands up.
Let officers wear their body cameras. This is my point of view, and I am constantly saying it. Put your body cameras on. Allow footage from body cameras to be sent to the public to show interactions, how persons interact with the police officers and vice versa. Let us know, change the narrative of we are not transparent enough because we're only getting one side because we are not putting ourselves out to get the other side.
That's my point. My point is, I believe, based on how this has been handled, you cannot dismiss the possibility that it's intentional. You cannot, because the budgetary needs for body cameras are not that high that it is prohibitive against the states. We're not talking about $1 million ladders. And then you're questioning, how did you procure these wooden ladders for, I think it was like $100,000 per ladder, some ridiculous, or $10,000 per ladder, some ridiculous amount of money, right? We're talking about body cameras at a time when the police have a trust and confidence issue. The fact that nobody in leadership is giving this any sort of priority. They cancel the order. Have we heard about a replacement order?
And I am bypassing the replacement. I am bypassing the order. I am saying at this point in time, there are body cameras within the organization.
And they're not being used.
And if they are not being used,
and that's my point,
why are we asking for more when we can't use what we have?
But listen, the reason why we're asking for more is the police say that it is not sufficient. That is their excuse for not using the cameras there now. So we can't justify it on both ends of the argument. We can't say, well, we can't use the pre-existing body cameras because it's insufficient, while also saying we have the body cameras already, so we don't need to buy any more, right? It's one or the other. But the problem is, when you look at how the executive has handled the situation and how the new Minister of Homeland Security has handled the situation, because Fitzgerald Hines didn't say nothing on anything, right? It's hard to now look at the situation and say, they're doing everything they can to solve a critical issue for the service. It's hard to reasonably say that. So then you have to entertain the possibility they like it so.
Fair enough.
Right? Because for the life of me, and this is why I am, in some ways I am most upset by the head of the Social Welfare Association. Because there's one thing for Alexander, who he thinks the status quo is fine. And we just need to be more reasonable, right? Because shooting a man down with an automatic rifle when there's two hands in the air, somehow there's a justification for that, according to those two.
I reserve my comments on that.
I said this, the public needs to speak out about it and not leave the police that are being held hostage out to dry. The police who are doing the right thing need to be more vocal, because their reputation is being destroyed by their leadership and political leadership, and they are allowing it to happen. But I can understand, like teachers and doctors, that they can't always speak out. I can understand that. And this is where we have seen in the past, the Doctors Association and the Teachers Union, they have spoken out because they represent the people and they have the right to speak out. That cannot be muzzled. And the Social Welfare Association, basically being in lockstep with the Commissioner and rubber stamping this, it's not a good look. It does not exonerate or really give any support. And to me, it almost seems as though any right-thinking officer that wants to see the situation fixed, they and all are being suppressed because they have no means in order to communicate their displeasure on the situation. And I don't like it one bit. We have to wrap. If you have 10 seconds.
10 seconds, I want to see body cameras being utilized. But at the same time, when it's being utilized, if there's evidential value, if there's evidence that needs to be presented in a court of law, unless we have, but there are interactions that need to be placed onto that can come out into the public domain, that will give some level of trust and confidence.
Here's the thing, quickly, we've seen in other jurisdictions, evidential value can be released to the public and it does not harm the investigation or the court matter, right? So we need to catch up to the times because we're acting with draconian laws from colonial times, and then we want to wonder, how does a modern society not understand this very irresponsible, impractical, and dare I say immoral behavior by people in charge? Folks, a lot to say, more we could have said, but it is what it is. I understand some people will disagree. Trust and confidence, I would say, potentially is less than zero. How do we fix it? Not doing the same old that's always been done. The commissioner, he's pointed to 3 investigations. The same 3 avenues of investigations that we always hear about, but never get any resolution. How does that make sense? So have a good weekend. Hopefully everything gets resolved. Be safe driving out there on your roads, by the way, and be safe in general so that we can see each other. Be nice. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Bye-bye. Next.
WESN.
Hello everyone, this is 10 questions on this week, on this day. Let's tell you what was happening in this edition of the program. You remember the case we call the Vindranai Paul Kuhlman murder trial.